Good morning, Pete here. We're in the garage workshop this morning. Right on the bench behind me, I've got a China knockoff Stratocaster. That's brand new, and it's got some issues, and at this moment in time, it's basically unplayable. So we're going to be looking at some of the issues that we have with this guitar, and going to be doing some upgrades on it, and hopefully get this thing back into playing condition, so the owner can enjoy this guitar and have a little bit of fun. So if you're interested in seeing what has to be done and how it's done, stay tuned. Well, right now we've got the Stratocaster benched, as you can see, and the only thing I've done so far is to strip the strings off it, just to get them gone. And one of the first things, as soon as the string tension was gone, one of the first things noticed was all the tuning keys. They're all loose, and you can see what's going on here. I've already taken one of these off and taken a look, and basically you'll see this a little later on, but basically what you got is a 10mm hole drilled in the headstock, and you've got tuners put in with a 6mm sleeve. So these these tuning machine heads are loose. Doesn't matter how much you tighten them down. The tightening nut will not go down any further because there's no thread left to tighten it. So what you have is a kind of a semi-floating tuner heads here. Also the play in the tuner heads, this one here, you can turn it a quarter of a turn before it even starts to tighten or loosen the string, and they're all about the same. They gotta go. So that's part of the issue. And you know, I haven't done much else other than just physically look at the guitar. The first thing that we are going to do, though, is we're going to check the truss rod out, and we're going to make sure that now that we got the strings off and we got the neck in a relaxed state, we're going to make sure that that truss rod is working and it's not jammed, and we're basically going to put the neck into an absolutely straight position. So stay tuned, and that's our next step here. Well, good day here. Day went by, and we let this guitar sit at night. It's still in an environmentally humidified room here in my shop, so it sat another day. I had conditioned the fretboard and let it sit overnight. Also let the neck sit there and stabilize. Just wanted to show you from yesterday. You can see you know, where I marked the high frets in blue. So those are the locations that when I was using the rocker tool, those were the locations where we have a high fret issue. And again, just to summarize, it's only high at this one location. In the middle it's fine, here it's fine. The same with this fret, it's only high in that one location. Same with this fret. However, this fret here was high on both the E string, high E string. Still a little high in the center, but it's okay here on the low E string location. So those are the frets that we have to dress up, and they're the only ones involved. So you know, we don't have to do a complete fret leveling here. We do have a tool for that. It looks, I'll show it to you. It looks like a bar like this. It's got metal sandpaper on both sides of it, you know, a coarse grit and a fine grit. And basically what you would do is you would put this on the fretboard, and you would run it back and forth, leveling all the frets. But then, of course, once that's done, you'd have to re-crown all the frets, which is a tedious job, and it's a lengthy job. So in this case here, we're just going to lower those 4 fret locations, and that's done with another StewMac tool. Looks like this, and it's got a diamond grit in here. So basically all you really do, you'll see this later, I'll actually be doing the work, but actually what you basically do is you put the tool on the fret like so, and run it back and forth until you got to be careful. Just take a little bit at a time. Put the rocker bar on and test it again, and you're going to do that all the way along till you get those frets even. Once that's done, there is another tool. I have another excellent tool from StewMac. This one here. It's called a Z file, and it does both the medium jumbos and the smaller frets. And what this basically does is you put it on the fret, you run it back and forth, and it recrowns the fret. You'll be seeing that action too later in the video as I work on these 4 frets. So that I'm just gives you a close-up of what's going on. I did mention this thing yesterday. What you have here, you can see that the diameter of the bushing, when you put it on, it's smaller, quite a bit smaller than the actual diameter of the hole that's been drilled. So as a result, even with that bushing on there, you've got an awful lot of play with these tuning machine heads. So, you know, couldn't really see that the other day in the video, but I wanted to give you a close-up look. And you can certainly see that the hole size here, diameter of that, is certainly a lot smaller than the absolute diameter of this entire hole here. This should actually fit snugly in there so that this thing cannot wobble around. So with that, just that little bit of explanation, you see what's going on. I'm gonna move up to the sky cam here so you can see some overhead work being done. So I'll be back to you shortly. Well, here we are. We're gonna now look at these frets and get these guys leveled off. So here we go, just a little bit off of here. Like I say, you don't take much off at a time. You just take a little bit, little bit, little bit. I'm just going to mark them here so I know which ones they are, in case that blue comes off. There. Took a little bit off there. That's all it took, is just that little bit there. Let's go to the next one. A little bit more right here. Still a bit. That one's fine. Move up to this next one. A little bit more. That's bang on the money now. Yep. Okay, one more here. This is the one that's got a little bit in the middle here too, so I'm gonna take it down from the middle right to the edge. A little bit more right in the middle. Yeah, still a bit more here. And that about does that. They're that's leveled those frets, you know. So anyways, this was the one of them I did. This was the other one. I did this one, and I did this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those frets are all level now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to recrown those frets. And the way we do that, again, I like using this StewMac Z file because I find it works just great. And what we're going to do is we're going to run a blue marker right along the top of each one of these frets, just like that. We're going to pick the right size. That's the small one. There's the one I want. And what we're going to do is we're going to go across the top of this guy. And what we're going to do is just do that till we get a nice blue line left. Just like that. We're getting there. I'm gonna grab a cloth just to wipe this off to make sure. Now we're gonna just recheck those frets again just to make sure that we're even. So, I think we got a winner here from the look of it. It looks pretty solid. And you can see it doesn't take much. This one, the frets weren't up that much, just a little bit. The one thing I didn't mention is before you go and you start filing these frets down here, the one thing I already did, but I should have mentioned, is you want to tilt this sideways. And you want to look at those frets that are high, especially along, to see if they've lifted out of the board here. Because if that's the case, then you know, maybe what you need to do is you put a little drop of crazy glue, possibly, and you're gonna hit that fret or push that fret down, you know, so that you know that it's level. We have a hammer like that, you know, where we can actually tap. This is actually used to seat the frets. So if we have a fret that's up a little high, you know, make sure you've got a good solid base, and you're going to give it a couple of solid taps with the rubber side here, so you don't damage the fretboard. But if it was a happen of one of these frets lifting, then you know, you try to reseat the fret rather than filing it. I already checked; none of these frets have lifted. Just they were right from the factory. Those frets were high. So other than that, what do we got left to do on this guitar? Basically, can't go any further until the new tuning pegs come in from StewMac. I did get an email this morning. They've been shipped, but I'm up here in Canada. They're coming out of the States. So probably looking at about a week before I can change these and then string it up and get this thing set up. So at this point, the only thing I've got left to do that I can maybe do in advance is I can reset this neck by taking this back plate off, as I explained earlier, and putting a little shim in there. And I guess that's the next phase we're going to go into, so please stay tuned if you want to see how that's done. Just wanted to, before I go into this this neck reset, I just wanted to kind of show you what we're looking at here. If I put a straight edge right on the fretboard, and I get down to here to where the bridge is, you can see what's going on here. Is that if you put this as low as possible, the way the neck is angled right now, there's just no way you're going to get any action here. You can see that this, this neck with this should be up about here, not way down here. So this gives you a real good idea of the neck, and why I mentioned in earlier video that this neck has to be reset. So basically, what's going to happen, you'll see that in the next little portion of video here. With this neck off, again, as I mentioned earlier, the idea is to bring this neck back, maybe a degree. Start off at about 1 degree, 1.5 degrees, and what that's going to do when that neck is brought back, it's going to put this up into more like this kind of a spot, a location, so that not sitting way down here like that. And that's why this guitar, the only way to get this thing to play, you had this terrible high action on it, because these guys here had to be taken up right to the very top to get it to clear over the neck, and even the pickups, even when the pickups were low. So like I say, you'll see the difference after we do the neck reset. We'll put this straight edge back on, and you're going to see that instead of looking like that, it's going to be more like up in this location here for a proper angle on the neck. So anyways, stay tuned. That'll be the next effort coming along here, guys. Well, let's get started on this removal of this neck. See what we got to work with here. I don't like using power tools on this. I find it too easy for something to slip off and end up scratching or doing something you don't want to have happen. So I usually do this by hand. So you got these 4 big bolts that go in here, called a bolt-on neck. There's 2 of them off. You'll also notice it's a good idea to have padding underneath here so this thing doesn't end up falling flat. We shall soon see what the inside of this holds. One more left to go after this guy here. 3 gone. Here's the last one. So once we get this apart, if that's a float, yeah, it is floating. Okay, take the plate off, take the neck off. So there you see basically what's going on here. This neck just slides in there. It's a pretty good fit. Bit of dust to come out. So, you know, in order to get this neck to tilt back on an angle, back this way more, you can see we're going to have to put a shim right in this back half area here. I've been using this kind of paper. It's a very heavy gauge paper to do this kind of thing. So you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this is going to be the back of it. And I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark off basically where this is going to go to. So it's going to go to about there. And we want it to come out about halfway, out into about this area here. So we're just going to cut that off with the scissors, if I don't wreck my light in the process. Something like this. We can adjust this paper a little bit more as we go along. But anyway, a little bit fat on the side here. We'll just take off a little edge here. Take this edge off a little bit right here. So, what's going to happen? It sits in there fine. Okay. I usually just stagger it a little bit. Take this down about to here. So we got something that looks like that in there. Okie dokie, let's see what happens. We're going to put this on there. We're going to flip the neck over into the position again that we just had it in. Make sure it's in there nice and solid. And we're going to put these screws back in. Again, I'm doing this by hand. So we're going to see if this is enough. Now it might turn out that we need more of a shim in there. And if we do, that's fine. We can easily add a little bit more thickness to that heavy stock paper that's in there if we want to. And just to make this quicker, rather than putting all 4 screws in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 of them in, like that. And that should be enough to give me an idea how far up I've moved this guy. So again, I'm going to sit down so I'm level. I'm going to put my, oh yeah, big difference here. So that looks like it just hit it just about right on with that. Yeah. I'm going to tilt this up to you so you can see what I'm talking about here. Hopefully this might be a little awkward to do. But if I tilt this up on an angle like this, and I put this straight edge across here, hold it, you're going to see down here at the bridge location here, you're going to see that now, instead of being way down here, that shim has migrated that neck up into a lot higher location there. So I think we're going to be okay just the way it is. So that was a good guess. Okay, let's just, Make sure that's there. It might be a good idea if I put the plate on though, eh? Don't matter, I got 2 more screws to go. So we know that, looks like that double did it. So let's just wrap this guy up again. See what we can do. So you see really, when you look at doing what I just did on a neck reset, you see it's not really a big deal to do it. After you've done 15 or 20 of these, you get to the point where, you know, you can pretty well, just by eyeball, you can eyeball the neck with that straight edge on there, and you have a really good idea, basically, just exactly how much of a shim you need. Surprising what that extra little bit of paper in there will do as far as moving that neck back. The other thing too is it might settle a little bit, so you might be better to go a little more than you have to. That paper might crunch down a bit, but not much. So we got 2 of them back in, all but. I'll tighten them up at the end when I got all 4 of them seated in here. Actually, when you're doing this kind of guitar work, there's nothing really physically hard about it. And, you know, you're looking at the actual mechanics. It's not hard either. It's just getting to know what makes a guitar work and what doesn't. So we're almost, this one's all but in. Got 1 more here to go. This back corner here. While I'm screwing this in, the other thing that I did, since I've never worked on this guitar before, I took this back plate off of here. There's a plate that sits on here that covers up the springs, because this guy has got a whammy bar on it, like most Strats do. And there's 3 springs here that hold the tension on the strings. The one thing you got to be careful of, if you change the gauge of strings, like you go from, like, for example, from a lighter gauge to a heavier gauge, you're going to have to adjust these. There's 2 screws here that'll go in and out, and it'll either put more tension on that spring, these springs, which basically tensions this, which is tensioning the whammy bar on the top of the guitar, and you can adjust that tension. You see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure I get these seated correctly in the chrome. That's why I'm doing it, just doing the final tightening right at the very end of this thing. So it looks like we got this thing done. The other thing I'll draw your attention to here, there's a little black wire here. You can see it soldered here, and there's also a little black wire going through here. Basically what that is, that wire goes all the way back into this jack, and there's a ground wire. The other black wire comes up and grounds out on the bottom of this bridge here. So I always like to check that, make sure, you know, that wire is attached, because if it's not, you're going to get a hum on your electric guitar, a real hum. And generally what the symptom is you're playing, you got a hum, you touch the strings or you touch the bridge and the hum goes away. You let go and it starts humming again. That's a pretty good sign that this this ground wire back here is not intact. So just so you know, just one little thing to look for. And I guess at this point I can go ahead and close up these this back plate here. I don't think I'll be into it again. Might help if I got a little wee screwdriver here just for that purpose, which I have. Put that back on. And what we're going to do after we get this done, just going to check that neck once again to see how the angle is. But from the look of it right now, I think it's going to be bang on. And again, generally speaking, I usually use hand tools for this kind of stuff. Using an electric screwdriver, it's too easy to overwind and strip something, and then the chances of it falling off and nicking is great too. So like I say, I just soon, most of this I do by hand. Just make sure they're tightened down fine. That's good, that's on. When you string this guitar, you can see the strings go through the body. They put holes here. The strings are going to go right through there, and they're going to come out the top here and wrap over and then go to the pegs. So that's basically how this the strings are going to go in. I'm going to do one more check here to make sure that I'm happy with this before I go any further, and just see where that's sitting. Yeah, that's bang on. So that should eliminate our issue with having to put the bridge up to the very high as it would go in order to get the strings high enough to clear things. So it's a good thing that we went and did that neck reset. And as you can see, there's not much to it. Other guitars such as a Les Paul, they don't have a bolt-on neck. They're a set-in neck and glued in, and there's very little you can do about that. If it's off, it's off. It makes it very difficult. But with all the Fender products, you know, the Telecaster, Stratocasters, they all have this bolt-on neck situation. So it makes it easy if you have to do a neck reset. Really nice for maintenance. So that's that little portion all done. And the next little episode that we're going to be working on, although I'm not going to bore you with the whole details of it, I'll do a few. I'm going to be taping this off, and I'm going to be filing with a fret file, getting these sharp corners off the end of these frets here, and that'll be the final last little thing to do. And then, like I say, hopefully the machine heads come in soon from StewMac. And it's going to be fun stringing this guitar up and seeing what happens. I know that prior to doing any of this work, this guitar was unplayable. There's absolutely no way you could play this guitar. The strings were so high here, and the other issue was with the machine heads and all this wobbling and loose issues that we have going on. You couldn't tune it either. It would as quick as you could tune it, it would be going out of tune. So part of this video, I'm also going to show how you do the proper setup on adjusting these guys, so that we can do a proper setup on this guitar. So you'll see that at a later video as we get the strings on and as we adjust these back and forth. So we can get the proper setup on this guitar. So hopefully you've enjoyed it so far. Over and out, and we'll see you soon. Well, we're back at the workbench here this morning, and what I just started doing, I started masking off this this fingerboard here, because I'm going to be doing some filing on these fret ends. And you know, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I'll show you what I do. I mask the side here, mask both sides, so the tape is right up underneath that fret that's sticking out. And then what I do is I mask off the fret itself, so you're going to get something like this going on. So, you know, you mark that off, and get it right in close to the fret there. So I get something like that going on this thing. So basically what you're doing is I'm going to mask the whole board all the way down. I'm not going to tape all that for you. Just give you an idea of what I'm doing. This one's going to fit, looks like, right on the money here. So you get something like that going on. And again, some people might have a really, you know, I guess, good hand, and they're comfortable filing these things by hand without any protection. But for me, for the time it takes to mask this, which you know, you can see, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to mask this down here, not a big deal. I mask a bit off here too, so when I'm filing here, I'm not accidentally hitting anything on each side of the neck here as far as the guitar body. And then what you're going to do once you get this hole done, and I'll just demonstrate it at these top ones here. If you run your finger along here, like there's a real sharp one, and they're all a little sharp, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to, depending on who does it, some people like a rounded edge file. I use a little file like this. It's just a triangle type file, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the edge off that sharp point there, and you do that with a rounding motion like this. And the reason you're using a rounding motion and across the top, then you're not, you know, if you were to go like this, there's a good chance that would go into the wood here, or into the side of the guitar neck itself and mark it. So the idea being is I put my finger underneath here, so I can't go down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just round across the top like this. And you know what? You do that, and maybe you need a little bit on the top like that too. And that takes that sharp edge right off the end of that fret. So you can see, rounded effort like that across the top. So I'll do the next one. And I'm doing exactly the same kind of thing. Doing a rounding across the top. Do the next one. It doesn't take much. All you got is a little sharp corner that's sticking out here. You see? So all you do is just hit the edges. Some are worse than others. Like this one had quite a sharp edge on it. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more. That one's got a real sharp edge on it. So again, I'm going to round across the top here. Boy, can you feel the difference? I've done that one, that one, that one, and that one, and this one. This one's still a little sharp. Needs a little more work on it. Just across the top there is all it needs. There, we got her now. So right now I can run them up and down there, and that's smooth. Once I hit this one, oh my goodness, like right here, here, really sharp. You can see if I was to run my fingernail down here, how this will just slide by. Watch what happens. Look at that. See the difference? This one will go right by. Don't feel nothing. This one, sharp as a razor. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. These all have to be done. And like I say, it's the same situation on this side or on this side here, so they all have to be done. So that's where I'm at. I'm not going to bore you with the whole effort here. They're looking at it probably somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour, maybe a little longer, to do all of these on both sides. But at least it gives you an overview of the process and how it's done. So hopefully that's great. And after that's all done, I think we're just waiting for the restring job. So I hope you've enjoyed this so far and learned a little bit. You might want to tackle your own guitar if you feel comfortable enough. I will say that you do need the proper tools. There's lots of places to buy luthier tools. I get pretty well everything that I own and I use from StewMac, because I find the quality of the products are excellent. You know, it's the old story, you get what you pay for. So, you know, you might find something cheap on one of the websites, online websites, you know, and at half the price, and it's made in some foreign country and it doesn't last. But for the most part, I've found that the StewMac stuff has been excellent, and so thus pretty well all my tools come from StewMac. And I've also found that, you know, when you're ordering things like tuners and that as well, I generally order from StewMac, and I've never been disappointed with the parts and the tools that I've received. So anyways, over and out, and I'll just bring the cam down a little bit here, and just so you can kind of see, you know, the process here, and you can see what I'm talking about. So if we go into this location right here, we go along. There's that sharp end right there. And there's another one. And you can, if you get down real close, you can see how that sharp end, especially on this side, is protruding past the rosewood, and that's where the problem comes in. If you look at one that I've done, you can see by taking these corners off here that there's nothing there now to cut yourself on. So anyways, talk to you later, and we'll get back to you when the next episode is going to be, I guess, restringing this guitar with installing the new machine heads. Have a great one.